All right, hello there, welcome back to another wee bit different video. Today's video, getting back into NBA Weekly. This has been an intense time in the NBA with the in-season tournament finally going into the quarterfinals starting on Monday and Tuesday. I am recording this on a Wednesday, and I'm not gonna lie, today I woke up at 1 p.m., which is really rare for me. I never wake up that late. I stood up really late editing a video, and here I am, really exhausted. And oddly enough, it's actually 4 p.m. now, and been awake for only 3 hours, which is odd because it's 4 p.m. But it is also an odd time for me to be recording at this time of the day, because typically I do it around the afternoon or late at night. But let's just get straight into it. You guys are here for this. Real quick though, by the way, if you're not familiar with the NBA Weekly format, first portion of the video, we talk about the current standings and the big news and the league leaders and certain stats. And then the second half of the video, we dive deep into 2 specific teams. Those teams will have 3 bullet points for each of them. And the first one will be good. The second one will be not so good. The third bullet point though is going to be a question, and it needs to be asked in order for them to really accomplish their goals on the season and or future. And it's going to be a pivotal question regarding that specific franchise. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Eastern Conference side of things, the Celtics, the first seed at 14-4. I've said it time and time again, but they are by far and away, to me, the most complete team in the NBA. Defense, offense, shooting, slashing, they have it all. Bucks at 13-5. Giannis and Dame actually looking really good as a duo right now. Magic winning 7 in a row at 12-5. Now this is a team that, if you go into their schedule and look at some of these wins, so they beat the Hornets, which is expected, but beating the Celtics was a huge win. Beating the Nuggets was a huge win. Beating the Raptors are a wild card, so that's a solid win still. Beating the Pacers, beating the Bulls twice in a row. And we talked about that a little bit into last week's NBA Weekly. But this Magic team has been playing really good. And I mentioned it last week, but I'll mention it again. They're getting solid production out of several players. Paolo and France being the more lock-on players, and then you're getting a lot of production from Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr. when he's healthy is honestly really solid. 76ers 12-5 though, tied with the Magic. Knicks coming in at 5th, 10-7. Pacers 9-7, and this is where it gets a lot more competitive this far early into the season. You have a lot of teams, you know, near 500 or barely over 500 or barely under 500. And we'll see how that kind of shapes out the further along we go. But the more notable things happening is LaMelo Ball spraining his ankle again. The dude is having some serious ankle issues for the past, since his career really started in the NBA. It is not a fortunate time to be a Hornet fan, because you're concerned, obviously. I mean, the dude time and time again is hurting those ankles. So hopefully he can get on that Stephen Curry plan. And if you're not familiar with that, Stephen Curry had huge ankle problems early in his career. He definitely got it resolved after getting those ankle braces, but also doing a lot of exercises and training himself to find ways to better manage that. So hopefully Melo can figure that out. Bulls losing 5 in a row, by the way, 5-14. They're gonna rebuild. And then topping it off with the Wizards and the Pistons. The Wizards are awful. The Pistons are more awful. 2-15, losing 14 in a row. It's bad. Going into the Western side of things though, you have some serious competition for that 2, 3, 4 seed. Number 1 seed, I think Timberwolves, as long as they continue to play the way they are, will maintain that spot, because Anthony Edwards has been flat out elite. You're getting great production from Naz Reid, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley being a huge and just important leader overall. Like, this Timberwolves team is really, really, really good. Denver Nuggets, when Jamal Murray comes back, very crucial. But also Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan having monster games against the Clippers when they were without their 2 best players, the Nuggets, of course. So that was a crazy game. Mavericks, Luka cementing that he's just a flat-out top 10, arguably even top 5 player in the league. I mean, I think some could argue top 4, but yeah, Luka is crazy. And the Suns, you know, winning 7 in a row. They were 4-6. It was looking iffy, and we still haven't seen their 3 guys together yet: Brad Beal, KD, and D-Book. But we already know that when they do get together, it's going to be crazy, because right now they're on this serious hot streak, and a lot of that is thanks to D-Book. You know, going down the list though, I think the huge surprises are the Warriors at 8-10 and the Clippers at 7-9. Although I did say when the Harden trade did happen that there's too many cooks in the kitchen for the Clippers. The Clippers are in a tough situation because they have too many guys who need the ball to be efficient. They don't have very good off-ball guys, right? You look at the Nuggets last year, you had 2 guys who were primary ball handlers. You had Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Everyone else can do stuff off the ball because they can just catch and shoot. They can cut to the basket, all kinds of great things. And fortunately with the Clippers, too many guys need the ball. Paul George, Kawhi, James, Russell Westbrook. It's not an ideal recipe for success. And, you know, with the Pistons losing 14 in a row, I feel like not enough people are talking about the Spurs losing 12 in a row. 3-14. The Spurs suck, dude. I'm sorry. I hate watching the Spurs. Like, I genuinely do not have fun. I think they, along with the Pistons, they play some truly atrocious basketball. Just lack of fundamentals. So many mistakes that are just like, it's spaghetti. Like, you know when you eat spaghetti, it's messy. It's just a messy food. That's the Spurs basketball. It's super messy. It might come out good here and there, but nah, dude, it is all over the place with the Spurs. Let's look at some of the league leaders though in stats before we get to the second portion of the video. Joel Embiid at 32 points per game. No surprise, the dude just knows how to get to the free throw line, and he can score from down in the post and in mid-range and the occasional 3. KD 31.4, Luka, Shea, and Giannis rounding it out at 3, 4, 5. Rebounds per game, Nikola Jokic is at 13.4, monster on the boards. Sabonis, AD at 2 and 3, and then Gobert and Embiid at 4 and 5. Assists per game, Tyrese Halliburton was at 12 assists per game. It's dropped down to 11.9, but I guarantee you he's going to try and keep it at that 12 range because that's an impressive number. I mean, being number 1 in the league is an impressive number anyway. Trae Young at 10 assists per game. Fred VanVleet 9.2. LaMelo again with that injury at 5, but Jokic at 4. Okay, now we're going into my favorite part of the video. We're going to dive deep into 2 specific teams. Now, when you look at the Detroit Pistons and you look at all their players, there's a lot of talent there. So I'm going to tell you some of the names and the players that I think, well, they have talent. They have potential to be something. Cade Cunningham, first and foremost. There's a lot going on there. Still averaging 20 plus points a game. It's 22 points per game, but we know he has talent. Isaiah Stewart, nothing crazy, but there's some potential there. Not only all-star potential by any means, but role player potential, really solid role player potential, and he's been pretty solid thus far. Oswald Thompson, he has elite kind of potential, major athleticism, already grabbing a lot of rebounds per game. Killian Hayes, I don't think there's a lot of potential there, but keep it going. Jaden Ivey, I think there's a ton of potential there. Jalen Duren, ton of potential there. There's just players on this team that can do something. I think the biggest thing that's holding them back right now, for one, is injuries. The starting 5 hasn't played together all that much, which obviously is really unfortunate. But I think the biggest thing for this team is just to continue to get these reps. Cade Cunningham missed all of last year, I think, aside from like the first 4 or 5 games or whatever. This year, he's making a lot of mistakes, but these are the mistakes that are going to need to happen. You know, reps have to be made, games have to be played for them to really get an understanding of the NBA kind of level and the kind of speed that they have to play at, the kind of efficiency they have to play at. They're missing a lot of shots, but again, it's early on, and I think you give this team some time. In the future, they'll figure it out. But the matter of the fact is, they have players who are capable of showing out. Second bullet point here, though, this one is just, it is the reason for all their faults. I think the number one reason, I should say, not the reason, but the number one reason. So second bullet point is awful shooting. This team just can't shoot. Let's go to their team stats before we go to the player stats real quick. So in terms of points per game, they're 27th worst in the league. There's only 30 teams, so they're 27th worst. 109.6 points per game. which is awful. Oddly enough though, their pace, they play super fast. They're the 9th fastest pace team in the NBA, which means fast breaks. They take them a lot of quick shots early in the shot clock, but it's not translating to success because their field goal percentage, 46% field goal percentage, which makes out to 23rd in the league, which is bad. Add on top of that, their 3-point field goals per game, 9.9, which is 2nd worst in the league. Well, it makes sense why they're not shooting much, because 3-point field goal percentage is 25th in the league, which is awful. They're shooting 34% from 3. Okay, so before I proceed any further, my screen just froze, so the second portion of the video, you won't see my face. I'll probably have some like background video, whether it's Pistons practice or whatever, so you'll hear the audio, but now that you can see my face again, we'll go back into it. So it might be a bit of a weird transition, but I just wanted to clarify because now I'm having to do 2 separate recordings, both audio and visual. So from what I remember last off, I was talking about the Pistons' awful shooting. I'm going to try to do my best to recuperate and go from here. But yes, their team shooting, they are 25th in the league in terms of 3-point percentage, which is just bad. Now, if we go individually to why that's a problem, well, Isaiah Stewart, well, let's start with Cade Cunningham. He's the best. He's the best player. Cade Cunningham is shooting 32% from 3. Which is not good. Flat out not good. Isaiah Stewart, 38% from 3. Not bad, but he's not a shooter and he's not going to shoot at a volume. Oswald Thompson doesn't shoot threes at all. Killian Hayes, 30%. Marvin Bagley, 20%. Jaden Ivey, 34.9%. Jalen Duren doesn't shoot threes. Marcus Sasser, who's recently been getting some run, he is shooting 36% from 3. Not bad, but definitely not good. This team just flat out can't shoot, which is very apparent in their team numbers and the player stats numbers. Cade Cunningham, you know, you can complain about him all you want, but when he has the ball in his hands, it's not easy for him to get these numbers up for the team, because who does he have to pass it to that can really snipe it? Not a lot. This leads me to the third bullet point though. We have, what can we expect? That's a question though that ultimately needs to be asked now, long term, a year from now, 2 years from now, is what can we expect from this team? Right now, I think what we can expect is they're not going to have a good record. They are going to be a top 3 worst team in the league. The reality is there is just not a lot to go off of here. No shooting. Lack there of fundamentals. Cade Cunningham needs more reps. He's turning over the ball way too much. Plus, they also do need to get healthy, need to get their best players in the starting lineup. And Monty Williams right now is clearly working through some kinks, clearly trying to figure it out, because I think even Pistons fans are really annoyed of everything that's going on. They probably don't like his coaching style thus far, but you're going to tank this season. You're going to get another young stud, or ideally someone with a lot of potential, and hopefully you can figure it out with them. But there is not a lot to expect this season, which is unfortunate for you guys. Next year, you're going to struggle. Maybe you'll figure out some things, try to push for play-in. And the year after that, 2 years later from now, hopefully you guys can just be playoff teams. You know, there's a lot of time between from now and 2 years later, so that's a far and away prediction. But the point is, what you can't expect now, well, you know, you're tanking again. And hopefully you guys can figure it out from here till next season, and you know, hopefully you can be a play-in team next season. But that's kind of what it is now. Okay, going into the second team, drum roll please. We got the Philadelphia 76ers. 76ers. Anyway, first bullet point, Tyrese Maxey is the clear-cut number 2, and he has absolutely transcended his game from years prior. This guy can score from every position of the court. It could be a 3-ball, mid-range, floater, finishing, does not matter. Tyrese can do an ISO play. He can flat out catch and shoot. The dude is just good, man. And you know, we're gonna look into his numbers real quick, and just to give you guys an idea of how good he's been. First of all, he's played every single game this season. He is averaging 26.6 points per game, which is phenomenal. He's averaging 7 assists per game, technically 6.9, but we're going to just go ahead and give him that rounded up number. 4.8 rebounds per game. He is shooting an astonishing 40% from 3, 46% field goal percentage, and he is only turning the ball over 1.4 times per game. The dude's numbers are phenomenal. And you're thinking, okay, defenses are game planning around Joel Embiid. Well, the thing is, they're also game planning around him now, and that's very apparent because he's flat out been better. And when Joel Embiid's off the floor and he can take over and just be the focal point, he hasn't disappointed at all. And he's doing it against every team. It doesn't matter what team, every team. I think the only team he's had a bad game against is the Timberwolves, from what I can see on this game log. Oklahoma City Thunder, 28 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. One of his first real bad games, Timberwolves, and that's because this is considered a bad game for him now. 16 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. He went 7 for 19. But the fact that 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists is really a kind of a bad game for him now is saying a lot. Cleveland Cavaliers, 30 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. I think you could definitely say that was a bad game, shooting 11 for 28, but he still had 30 points. Like, this dude has flat out exploded, has looked super electric out on the floor, and he just changes the game for the Sixers team on top of what Joel Embiid was already doing, because we know Joel Embiid, last year MVP. We don't need to get too deep into him, but yeah, Joel Embiid's pretty freaking good too. Getting into the second bullet point though, we have a lot of ISO ball. Why is that a bad bullet point? Why is this the second bullet point? To be honest, I had a nitpick because this team's doing it on all facets of the game, but this is one of those things that it has been a bit of a problem and it slows the game down for them, maybe a little too much. So let's look at the players that do get into that ISO ball a little too much to where it takes them away from team basketball. Let's go to the Sixers stats again real quick. So if we look at it right here, their pace is 20th in the league, 97.9. So they're a top 10 slow team in the league. Reason being is for that ISO ball, and also their assist numbers is at 25.8 assists per game, which is quite literally middle of the pack. They are 16th in the NBA, or I guess not literally would be 15, but that's not the point. The point is they're just about average in assists per game because they have a lot of isolation going on. Let's look at the players that do that. Tyrese Maxey, we know he does that. Tobias Harris, you know he's going into the post fiending for that mid-range shot. Joel Embiid, you know he's going and fiending for that spot. Kelly Oubre, when he was healthy, we know Kelly Oubre is a very streaky scorer, but a lot of what he does, you feed him and you just let him cook. Now, don't get me wrong. You have a lot of players who are selfless and who definitely like to D up, do the 3-and-D, the catch and shoot kind of thing. Anthony Melton is one of those guys who not isolation heavy, definitely more of a catch and shoot, defensive heavy kind of player. Pat Bev, same thing. Nicholas Batum, same thing. Rocco, same thing. Daniel House, same thing. Like, there's a lot of guys who are willing to be selfless, but the point is they're playing slower because they do have those possessions, Joel Embiid possessions especially, to where they're taking down that shot clock, slowing the game down. It's a gift and a curse at the same time because sometimes you can get in a really bad scoring drought. It happens with these slower paced kind of teams, which is unfortunate, but I had to nitpick because, to be honest, their points per game, their field goal percentage, their 3-point field goal percentage, their free throw percentage, all of that shit is insanely high. Offensive rebounds, turnovers, like they are limiting turnovers. They are scoring at a high rate. Their free throw percentage is number 1. I have to say something bad about this team. And the only real bad thing that I could say is, yeah, there is too much ISO ball. You definitely want to see the ball being spread out more. Now, of course, ISO ball is a necessary part of the NBA. Every team does it, but this team does it to where they're slowing down the pace of the game. And sometimes it leads to scoring droughts that you don't want to see. Third bullet point, though, which is the final bullet point, of course. Are they real contenders? The answer is I'm not entirely sure because I think every year there's always a team that shows a good record at the regular season, but then they can't close out in a best-of-7 series. But we just don't know if Joel Embiid can show up in the playoffs. We haven't seen him do that. where it's like, damn, this dude is just taking over. Tyrese Maxey, young player. What is it? His 4th year now? It's tough to say because there's inexperience, but even the players that are experienced, how much success have they truly had in the playoffs? So you don't really know what you're going to get out of this team. I mean, let's look at this team in general. Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, D'Anthony Melton, Pat Bev, Batum, Oubre, Paul Reed. Like, how many of these guys have had playoff success? Not any of them from what I remember, let's be honest. I don't think any of them have had playoff success. So you take a team that hasn't had that success in the playoffs, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that. How good can they be? You know, funny enough though, going back into the first thing we were talking about, the Pistons are playing the Lakers live right now, and they're down 14 already in the first quarter. They might lose 15 in a row. That's a real possibility. They've lost 14 in a row. It might be 15. I mean, oh my God. A lot of the things I know we were talking about the Sixers, but I kind of wrapped it up there. But a lot of the things we were talking about with the Pistons, I mean, their shooting is atrocious right now. Isaiah Stewart's 1 for 3 from 3. Jaden Ivey's 0 for 1. Oscar Thompson's 0 for 2. Isaiah Livers is 1 for 2. Killian Hayes is 0 for 1. They're already shooting really badly. Literally 2 for 9 from 3, 8 from 22 from the field. These problems are still persisting, and that just goes to show that I think this is going to be a problem throughout the season. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the state of the NBA right now and some of these teams. But as always, I appreciate you guys for watching. This is All We've Been Different. All We've Been Different. And we out.